You are not going to be able to watch porn on the internet without disclosing your real-life identity from the 1st of April. No, this isn't an April Fool's joke. No, this is not clickbait. This is a real law that has been debated and passed by government. The nationwide porn block in the UK is happening. If you're anything like me, this first sounds preposterous, then sounds hilarious, and then you're gripped by the uncontrollable existential fear that my porn tastes are possibly going to be collected and kept in a database somewhere. Help. I'm gigadrupally annoyed because I talked about this back in 2013, before I had a beard, and I'm sure before most of you were fully grown adults. And frankly, I'm mainly irritated that my beautifully coiffed hair at the time and my perfectly powerful message didn't cut through to the national zeitgeist. Incidentally, if you remember this video, smash that like button. Please, despite all of this, I want you to not worry. Your Uncle Jazza is here to explain why our members of parliament think this is a necessary step when it comes to porn consumption in the UK. I'm going to also explain why this is such a mind-numbingly bad idea, and most importantly, I'll be letting you know how you can get around it when it actually comes into force on the 1st of April. It'll be handy, that. Stick around. But first of all, following a report from the NSPCC that showed that over 50% of 11 to 16-year-olds had stumbled across porn while surfing the web, politicians and parents seemed to collectively pretty much lose their shit. Apparently, nobody had heard of parental controls that already exist in order to stop Timmy from seeing a boob on the internet. The porn block was incorporated into a pretty innocuous-sounding piece of legislation called the Digital Economy Act of 2017. It states that all commercial porn sites will have to use an age verification system approved by the government if they are going to continue to not be blocked in the United Kingdom. The block was meant to come into force in 2018, but it's been plagued by a load of technical issues. It's almost like they've seen a problem, proposed an answer, and not actually had any idea how it can be effectively actually carried out. It's almost like our government might be incompetent. Perish the thought. There are several reasons why I think this piece of legislation is bad. First off, I want to challenge something that I don't think has really been talked about in a lot of the critique of the porn block, and that's the idea that porn itself is inherently a bad thing. Luckily, I am friends with one of the coolest sex vloggers in the industry, Hannah Witton, and we sat down for a little chin wag and talked why porn might actually be good. Hey Hannah, so I feel like there is an awful lot of panic around the fact that people watch porn. You, as a really quite wonderful sex vlogger and author, I wanted to bring you on and for you to kind of explain why perhaps we need to be less scared of pornography as a medium that people actually watch. The reason that the government are bringing this legislation is basically because of the "won't somebody think of their children" panic. What do we know about the way that children are affected by porn?
So not a lot, because you can't really do a study on that because it is illegal to show children porn. So
ethically dubious.
So doing actual real studies on that, bad. Don't do that. But what we can kind of look at is what is normal, healthy sexual development in children, in young people. And part of that is a curiosity about sex, a curiosity about bodies, about genitals, about relationships, about where babies come from, like about their own bits, pleasure and things like that. That is a very normal curiosity in children. Yeah, I think the "won't somebody think of the children" is this cry for hope that children are innocent, but they then confuse innocence with ignorance. So we don't want children to be ignorant of these things. They can still be innocent and they can still be protected from abuse and like risk of abuse and things like that, and actually giving them the knowledge of these things and making sure they're not ignorant is the best way to safeguard children.
What for you do you think are some of the consequences of there being kind of like these restrictions to being able to view porn? What do you think could be the unintended consequences of this for our society, for the UK?
I think one of the unintended consequences is that young people under 18 or whatever access it anyway, but because they know it's illegal, they don't talk to anyone about it. And then they're accessing stuff, we don't know whether it's the good porn or the bad porn, but what is that debate anyway? That's a whole other thing. But they're accessing things for the first time, maybe that's their only sex education, and because it is illegal, they feel that shame and they're kind of silenced by the law almost, but that they don't feel like they can talk to an adult in their life and being like, I saw this thing online, and then like being able to think critically about that, because all they know is that what they're doing is illegal and they shouldn't be doing it.
Oh, you're so fucking articulate. Hannah is brilliant. Go and watch her video that we made over on her channel about this, and subscribe to her if you haven't, you fool. She's one of the best. Another reason I'm not a big fan of the porn blog are the concerns I have about privacy. Not that I have anything to hide. I've got nothing to hide. After the 1st of April, you are going to have to prove your age to any commercial porn site that you visit before you're able to watch any of that jiggly goodness. You will most likely have to do this by uploading a passport, a driver's license, and maybe even a credit card, depending on what service the porn site decides to use. Now, those providing these age verification tools will argue that they don't hold personal information, that they use really high levels of encryption, and that their databases are secure. But everyone says that until there is a leak. And I know that this is speculative, but we've heard these guarantees of privacy and security before. Do you perhaps remember the Ashley Madison leak in 2015 from a site that encouraged people to cheat on their partners, and there was this huge data leak? They've had to pay millions in compensation to people who were affected by that massive breach in their privacy and the damage it did to their private lives. Forgive me for leaning on the side of skeptical when it comes to companies saying that they can truly protect our data and information, especially when it's so sensitive and potentially juicy. Imagine a teacher or a politician or a celebrity or a parent having their porn tastes leaked online, or even like a less dramatic version of that. Imagine if like the sites that they have registered on ended up being leaked. There are real life consequences, and it could be career ending for an awful lot of people if the security is perhaps not as good as the tool providers think it is. What's more, what is likely to be the largest provider of identification tools, Age ID, is owned by a company called MindGeek, who coincidentally are also the company that own some of the largest porn sites in the world, like Pornhub, RedTube, XTube. There's definitely no conflict of interest with the people who provide the porn also keeping information and doing the verification for the government when it comes to letting us actually watch the porn. Who thought this was a good idea? One of the biggest and probably most valid criticisms of modern pornography is the way that the mainstream depicts women. And as the largest provider of porn in the world, arguably, MindGeek has had a hand in creating that problem, the problem that the government is choosing to legislate against, but then also providing the solution. You've got to hand it to them. It is genius, but the government are letting a small number of people decide what porn looks like and being the gatekeepers to that pornography, and I think that is hugely problematic. You can read more about this argument on the Girl on the Net blog, which I will link down below in the doobly-doo. And now that we've heard all that, it's time for the biggest criticism of this legislation. It is the fact that it isn't going to work. Despite all of this, the most irritating part of this legislation is that it is pointless. The block only applies to sites where porn makes up no more than a third of its content, and where the site is commercial, where it earns money on ads or perhaps on paywalls. It's not hugely clear. This means that social media and community sites are exempt from this porn block, despite the fact that there is a ton of pornography on Twitter. And if you're genuinely worried about young people stumbling across pornography, they are most likely going to be stumbling, accidentally seeing pornography on a site like Twitter or on Reddit than they are on an actual porn site. It's so silly. And then finally, there is the solution. That means that we're all going to be able to bypass this porn block without having to register anywhere. If you've used a VPN before, you've probably used it in order to watch a show that was geo-blocked in your country and for some reason Netflix only had the rights to in Australia or something. Basically what a VPN does is it reroutes your internet connection via another country. And as well as allowing you to illegally watch videos and shows from other countries, it is a really good privacy tool. Now, what is hilarious about this porn block is that it only applies to the UK, and all you need is a VPN to show that you're not in the UK, and then you will be able to access all of this pornography without having to verify your age. You have a few days until the 1st of April arrives. Do some research on a VPN. If you would like me to do some research for you and recommend some VPNs and give you some like pros and cons of which ones to choose, let me know in the comments below. Maybe I'll make that video very soon, so that we are all equipped in order to still watch the pornography that we want. More widely though, I think that this shows a trend that we see in internet governance that is becoming much less open and way more restrictive. And I worry about that. Because it was the freedom of the internet that helped me as a gay guy realise my sexuality and come out and realise that I was able to, that there were other people like me in the world. And it's a hugely powerful tool for people who are repressed throughout the world, a great democratiser. And I'm really, really sad that the UK is now in cahoots with places like Russia, who have such a regressive pornography stance towards pornography and a regressive stance towards the internet as a whole. I think that's something to be sad about. But however, despite all this, I'm going to still be around making videos and telling you how to get around these things as our internet gets more and more closed off. So please do subscribe to the subscribe orb. Watch this video because the algorithm of YouTube decided that it wanted that you would like it, and the algorithm is never wrong. Also go over to Hannah's channel and subscribe to her and watch the video that we did over there. And I will see you guys very later. Probably very later, but hopefully very soon. Toodaloo!